have spent entire lifetimes looking at the sky, sending prayers into the void, and waiting for an external force, a benevolent destiny, or a stroke of luck to have mercy on your existence. They taught you that the universe is a wise entity or a father who decides what to give and take according to your merits. They lied. That is the metaphysics of the slave, the philosophy of one who begs for crumbs at the table of their own creation. This book has reached your hands because that version of you has died of exhaustion. Today the veil is torn and the prescribed truth emerges. The universe has no will. It is a docile response mechanism. Understand this with the coldness of a physical law. The cosmos is not your guide. It is your shadow. And a shadow does not decide where to walk. It simply imitates the movement of the body that projects it. If your life is full of lack or chaos, it is not a test, but because your frequency has been emitting orders of disorder. The universe has obeyed you with terrifying fidelity, giving you exactly what you have vibrated. The good news is that the command has always been yours. Sovereignty is not something you must earn. It is something you must admit. The universe will have no other option but to obey you is not a poetic title. It is a technical sentence. In the pages that follow, we are going to dismantle the structure of doubt and install the protocol of absolute certainty. We are going to stop asking and start dictating. You will learn that matter is not solid, but a liquid substance that congeals instantly under the weight of a decree issued from the throne of the I Am. You will discover that time and space are variables that you can bend at your whim when you stop being a passive observer and become the architect of reality. This book is the death certificate of your small version, the one that believes in luck and exhausting physical effort. There is no room for hope here. Hope is the confession that you do not have what you desire. Here there is only room for assumption. By taking your place as the sole cause of everything you experience, you free the universe from the burden of having to decide for you. You give it a clear and final order. When the king speaks, the farthest atom has no choice but to obey. Get ready. You are about to enter the banquet of existence, where opulence, flawless health, and massive success are not miracles, but the natural reflections of your new identity. The banquet is served, the throne is empty, and the universe is waiting, with bated breath, for you to give your first real order. Chapter 1. The Illusion of External Autonomy. You have been programmed to believe in a ghost. From the moment you were born, the Matrix inoculated you with the idea that the outside world is a solid, objective, and, most dangerous of all, autonomous entity. You were taught to respect circumstances, to fear the economy, and to fight disease. This belief is a shackle. It keeps humanity in a state of perpetual servitude. It makes you believe you are a minor actor in a movie directed by an outside force. Welcome to the collapse of the illusion. In this first command protocol, we are not going to ask you to have faith in your power. We are going to prove to you the coldness of quantum law. We will show that the universe has no will of its own, no plans for you, and no capacity to decide what to give or take. The universe is a docile response mechanism, an infinitely plastic specular substance that has no physical option but to reflect the pressure of the consciousness observing it. External autonomy does not exist. It is a side effect of your own creative ignorance. As long as you believe something outside of you has power, you are ceding your throne to a hologram. For the universe to have no choice but to obey you, you must first understand what you are looking at when you look at the world. The Matrix makes you believe reality is a cause. It tells you, look at your empty bank account, that is reality. Now react to it with fear. By reacting, you emit a frequency of lack, and the universe, in its perfect obedience, returns more reasons to feel lack. It is a loop of slavery. The prescribed truth is that the physical world is not a cause, it is an effect. It is the solid residue of your past states of consciousness. The empty bank account you see today is not present reality. It is yesterday's photograph of your vibration of scarcity. Trying to change the outside world by reacting to it is as stupid as trying to change your hairstyle by combing the reflection in the mirror. The mirror has no autonomy to change your hairstyle. You must change your hairstyle first, and the mirror, without opinion, without judgment, and without delay, will reflect the change. The universe operates under this same physics of the mirror. It has no benevolent plan to make you rich, nor a malevolent plan to make you suffer. It simply lacks the capacity to have plans. It is a sensitive substance that congeals instantly under the form of your most persistent assumption. If you walk through the world feeling like a sovereign, the liquid matter reorganizes to bring you the experiences, people, and resources that confirm your sovereignty. If you walk feeling like a victim, the universe will obey you by giving you more reasons to complain. Its obedience is its only law. One of the most sophisticated control mechanisms of the matrix to maintain the illusion of external autonomy is time. You were taught that a period of effort must pass between desire and manifestation. This delay makes you believe that the universe is processing your order, or that there are obstacles to overcome. This belief is what solidifies the delay. At the 0 point of consciousness, time does not exist. Only the eternal now exists. Manifestation is instantaneous on the causal plane. The only reason things seem to take time on the physical plane is because of the density of your own doubt. Every time you look at the world to see if it happened yet, you are emitting a signal of "it is not here," and the universe obeys you by keeping the result in the future. External autonomy feeds on your impatience. By believing that something outside must change before you can feel satisfied, you are confessing that you do not have the command. The sovereign does not wait. The sovereign establishes. By occupying the frequency of "it is already done" with total indifference toward the clock, you force matter to collapse. You eliminate excess potential and force matter to collapse into form in a fraction of ordinary time. Delay is not a property of the universe. It is a subconscious decision of your own fragmented mind. Under this new command protocol, the concepts of luck and destiny are eradicated. They are the comforts of the slave mind. Luck is the name given to their own creative ignorance by those who do not understand the law of vibratory cause and effect. Destiny is the excuse of those who are afraid to assume total responsibility for their existence. The universe has no written destiny for you. There is no cosmic book deciding your health or wealth. Destiny is simply the predictable trajectory of your current frequency. If you keep vibrating in complaint, your destiny is chaos. If you fix your frequency on opulence, your destiny is inevitable wealth. By changing your base frequency on the throne of consciousness, you rewrite the script of your life in real time. There is no luck to wait for because you are the factory of luck. There is no destiny to accept because you are the architect drawing the blueprints. External autonomy dies when you assume total authorship of every shadow and every light on your path. Many initiates ask, "Why do I have to struggle so much for what I want?" The answer is technical. You are not fighting against the universe. You are fighting against the echo of your own past resistance. When you emit a new decree of power, the physical world does not change instantly. It has inertia. The events you experience today are the result of the frequency you emitted yesterday. If you vibrated in lack yesterday, today you will see lack. If today you change to opulence, you will see opulence. But first you will have to cross the echo of yesterday's lack. The illusion of external autonomy takes advantage of this echo. When you see that lack persists, the matrix whispers, "See, the world does not obey." If you believe that whisper and react with frustration, you have fallen back into duality. You have made the echo visible again. The protocol requires you to look at yesterday's echo with an icy indifference. Do not pay attention to it. Do not fight it. Do not try to fix it. Simply let it pass like a train that is not yours. By withdrawing your attention from the echo, it loses its energetic sustenance and dissolves, allowing the new form of your decree to crystallize without obstacles. Resistance is not of the world, it is your own reaction to the past. Finally, the illusion of external autonomy is sustained by the identity of the slave. The slave is attached to form. The slave needs the physical world to confirm who they are. They need to have the money in hand to feel rich. They need to see the symptom gone to feel healthy. The sovereign instead operates from the identity of the source. They know who they are before the world shows it to them. You are rich not because you have money, but because you inhabit the frequency of opulence, and money is simply the inevitable physical byproduct of that frequency. You are healthy because you inhabit the molecular harmony of your divine self, and the body has no choice but to reflect that harmony. The closing of the circle demands that you dissolve the need for external confirmation. By ceasing to seek evidence in the physical world, you eliminate the gap of time and space between the decree and the form. You become transparent to limitation and opaque to abundance. The universe has no choice but to obey you. The Matrix has built a cathedral of lies on a concept you call objectivity. They have made you believe that things are as they are, regardless of who looks at them. They tell you that gold is scarce, that the body deteriorates, and that markets collapse by unmovable economic laws. This is the basis of external autonomy. It is the belief that the world has rules that you must obey. But in forbidden metaphysics, the only legislator is you. In this second phase, we are going to pulverize the idea of natural law to install the law of the atomic dictator. The universe is not a machine that runs alone. It is a response hologram. Each particle of what you call matter is in a state of constant flux, in a vibration of pure potential that only solidifies when it receives an instruction from an observing consciousness. If you do not emit a clear instruction, atoms group according to the collective egregore of fear, lack, and old age. But when you occupy the throne, matter loses its right to randomness. Atomic docility is the basis of your reign. The science of the mass lives on statistics. They tell you that you have a 10% probability of success or an 80% risk of disease. By accepting these figures, you are allowing autonomy to dictate reality. You are accepting that the universe is a casino where you are just another player. The divine self does not play dice. The divine self collapses probability. In quantum physics, a particle exists in all possible states until it is observed. In command metaphysics, a situation has all possible results until you decree. When you say, "This is so," you are eliminating all other branches of the multiverse. You are not waiting for statistics to favor you. You are forcing matter to collapse into the only form you have authorized. The universe has no choice because, when you fix your sovereign attention, other probabilities wither. Luck is simply the name the weak give to the accidental collapse of a positive probability. For you, success is a mathematical necessity derived from your vibratory firmness. You have passed from being a castaway in the sea of statistics to being the magnet that orders the iron filings of destiny. Imagine the universe as an animal of absolute loyalty, but lacking its own initiative. If you run with fear, it chases you. If you stop with authority, it sits at your feet. If you launch a command to attack, it bites. The universe does not judge the morality of your order. It only judges the clarity of your emission. External autonomy is an optical illusion produced by a confused emission. If you desire wealth but feel you do not deserve it, you are sending contradictory signals. The universe, in its docility, stays paralyzed or delivers mediocre results that reflect your own confusion. Your command is just blurry. For obedience to be total, your emission must be monolithic. You must eliminate the distinction between what you want and what is. Desire is the confession of lack. Decree is the affirmation of possession. When you stop wanting wealth and start emanating opulence, the universe recognizes the frequency of the owner. It rushes to bring the physical equivalence. It has no other choice, because its only programmed function is synchrony. The mirror cannot refuse to reflect your image. The universe cannot refuse to reflect your identity. One of the Matrix's tricks is the sensation of solidity. We hit a table and it is hard. But hardness is an electrical interpretation of the brain, not a property of matter. At the subatomic level, the table is 99.9% empty space and vibrant energy. What you call hard reality is actually high-speed plastic matter. It is as sensitive to your thought as water is sensitive to the wind. External autonomy vanishes when you stop seeing things and start seeing fields of information. An economic problem is not a lack of paper money. It is a knot in the information field of your abundance. An illness is not a biological failure. It is a distortion in the plane of your perfect health. Matter is plastic. By changing information at your throne, the knot undoes and the distortion is corrected. Matter offers no resistance. It is your belief in its hardness that creates friction. When you understand the world is as malleable as a dream, the universe's obedience becomes instantaneous. Common sense is a trap. Common sense is the Matrix's manual for keeping you within the limits of external autonomy. It tells you to be realistic and to accept the limitations of the market. Common sense is the logic of one who has accepted that the mirror is in charge. To have the universe obey, you must develop a higher order logic. This logic dictates that if you change the cause, your vibration, the effect, the world, must change by legal necessity. If common sense says there is no money, your command logic says the source is infinite and money is just one form of precipitation. By rejecting mass logic, you become invisible to mass laws. Economic crises pass you by. Epidemics find no resonance in your body. Conflicts dissolve before reaching your door. You are not fighting the world's logic. You are simply operating from a platform where those laws have no jurisdiction. The universe obeys because you stopped giving power to laws others invented. The greatest proof that you have destroyed the illusion of external autonomy is your capacity for sovereign indifference. The slave is obsessed with results. They constantly check the bank balance and the scale. This vigilance is proof they believe the outside world has the last word. The sovereign does not watch. The sovereign emits the decree and then retires to the banquet. They do not watch the manifestation because they know it is inevitable. If you know the sun will rise, you do not spend the night looking out the window with anxiety. You sleep with certainty. That same certainty is what you must apply to your decrees. Sovereign indifference is the finishing blow to the hologram's autonomy. By not needing the universe to obey you, you prove you already possess what you decreed. This lack of need removes all resistance and allows matter to organize with a speed that the logical mind would consider miraculous. You must let go. The universe obeys faster when you stop chasing it and start inhabiting your result. The technical conclusion is the recognition that the distinction between you and the universe is a perception error. There is no you here and a universe there. The universe is your expanded body. When you move your arm, you do not think about how to convince the muscles. It simply happens by impulse of will. The physical universe works exactly the same. Galaxies and cells are the muscles of your cosmic body. When you emit a decree from the divine self, the universe moves because it is an extension of you. The illusion only persists while you see yourself as a creature separate from source. By closing the circle of identity, you discover that the universe's obedience is not a submission of an outside entity, but the natural functionality of your own existence. It has no other option because it is nothing but you in projection. Chapter 2. The Collapse of Resistance. The Science of Non-Friction and the Mastery of Matter. Close your eyes for a moment and visualize the world around you. You see walls. You feel the weight of your body. You hear the sound of traffic or the hum of a fan. Your senses swear to you that you are surrounded by solid objects, by immovable physical laws, and by a reality that exists independently of you. This is the first great lie. This is the source of all your resistance. Science, that same tool man uses to try to understand his prison, has given us the key to the cell. If you observe a wall through a scanning electron microscope, the solidity vanishes. What you see are atoms, and if you look inside those atoms, you see 99.99% empty space. What you call matter is simply energy vibrating at a frequency so low that your senses, limited and programmed, interpret it as something solid. The resistance you feel in your life, that business that won't close, that body that won't heal, that bank account that won't grow, is not a stone wall. It is a configuration of energy that you yourself are keeping solid through your observation. The moment you label something as difficult, you are sending a quantum order to the atoms to cluster, harden, and give you battle. The collapse of resistance begins when you stop believing in the solidity of the problem. Why does the universe resist some and surrender to others? The answer lies in the command frequency. Most human beings operate from psychological friction. They believe that to obtain something they must fight, sacrifice, or struggle. Listen well. Effort is the confession that you are not the master. When you exert effort, you are implicitly admitting that the object of your desire is outside your control, that it is superior to you, and that you must convince reality to hand it over. This attitude creates a distortion in the quantum field known as excessive potential. By giving too much importance to a result, you generate a pressure that the universe, by pure law of equilibrium, must compensate for by creating obstacles. The dictator of his own reality does not struggle. The dictator dictates. There is no friction in his movement because he does not see himself as someone who tries, but as one who determines. The resistance of matter is directly proportional to the doubt of the observer. If you doubt 1%, matter will resist 100%. If your certainty is absolute, matter becomes liquid, docile, and transparent. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect dictates that light behaves as a wave or a particle depending on whether someone is looking at it. This is not just a laboratory experiment. It is the instruction manual for your life. Every situation in your life is a wave of possibility until you observe it. If you observe it with the eyes of a slave, fear, need, urgency, you collapse that wave into a particle of resistance. You create a solid problem. If, on the contrary, you learn to observe reality from the throne of consciousness, you can prevent situations from solidifying against you. To nullify the friction of matter, you must practice sensory de-identification. You must learn to look at the no of the physical world and not react to it. If a bank denies you a loan and you get frustrated, you have just sealed that no into your reality. You have accepted the friction. But if you look at that rejection letter and in your inner core you smile knowing that matter is only a late echo of your past thoughts, the resistance dissolves. The no cannot sustain itself if there is no one to validate it with their emotion. Resistance needs a fulcrum to exist. If you throw a punch at the air, there is no friction. If you hit a wall, you break your hand. The secret to nullifying the friction of matter is to become air, metaphysically speaking. This is achieved through the state of emptiness. Most people are full of themselves, full of their stories of failure, full of their social labels, full of their fears of the future. When you are so full, you collide with everything. The universe has no room to maneuver in your favor because you occupy all the space with your anxious ego. By emptying yourself of the need for things to happen in a certain way or at a certain time, you eliminate the contact surface where friction usually acts. This is the state of sovereign detachment. It's not that you don't care about the result. It's that you know the result is inevitable. Therefore, you don't need to guard it with anxiety. Anxiety is the glue that keeps problems stuck to your experience. By releasing anxiety, problems lose their grip and fall of their own weight. You cannot nullify the resistance of the outer world if your own body is at war with you. Your nervous system is the antenna that broadcasts the command signal. If you live in a state of chronic stress, your antenna is emitting static noise. Biological friction manifests as muscle tension, shallow breathing, and obsessive thoughts. A tense body is a body that expects an attack. And if you expect an attack, the universe, in its infinite obedience, will send you something that attacks you. To reprogram your biology and turn it into a channel of non-resistance, the command of repose. You must train your body to be in absolute calm while your mind visualizes chaos being ordered. This controlled dissonance is what allows consciousness to dominate matter. The breath of expansion. When you feel matter tighten around you, breathe deeply. Feel your atoms separating. Visualize yourself occupying the entire room, then the entire city. By expanding your identity, the problem that seemed giant becomes tiny, an insignificant particle in your vast field of consciousness. Speech is one of the greatest sources of friction. Every time you explain your plans, every time you complain about an obstacle, you are solidifying resistance. Human language is limited and loaded with concepts of duality: good, bad, easy, difficult. The dictator of reality uses silence as a siege weapon. By not speaking of the resistance, you give it no food. In metaphysics, what is not named ceases to have form. If you have a financial problem, talking about it with your friends is like watering a weed. Nullify friction by closing your mouth and opening your inner vision. Let the world wonder how you did it, but never give them the map. The mechanics of forced synchronicity. Most people see luck or coincidences as fortuitous events that happen to them by chance. For the dictator of his reality, coincidence does not exist. Forced synchronicity exists. If matter is docile and resistance is an illusion, then events are nothing more than pieces of a puzzle that you have the power to fit by force. When you emit a command of authority, the fabric of reality begins to fold. Imagine a taut cloth. If you place a heavy sphere in the center, the entire cloth curves toward that point. Your will is due heavy sphere. Synchronicity is simply the natural sliding of events toward the center of gravity you have created, the collapse of linear time. The greatest resistance for the human being is time. We believe that things take time. That thought is the lubricant of friction. To force synchronicity, you must operate from no time. The moment you decide that something is a fact, that event already exists in the quantum field. Waiting is an error of perception. If you wait, you are assuming that the event is not here, and that assumption creates a barrier of density that delays manifestation. One of the greatest points of friction we face is the belief in the will of others. We think a boss, a judge, a partner, or a competitor has the power to stop our progress. This is the most insidious form of resistance, interpersonal friction. Here is where the metaphysics of command becomes radical. In your universe, there are no other wills, only projections of your own. If you perceive resistance in another person, that person is only acting out the script that you, subconsciously, have written for them. If you fear someone will betray you, that person will feel the irresistible impulse to betray you to satisfy your quantum observation. To nullify the resistance of others, you must stop seeing them as separate entities and start seeing them as extensions of your own field of influence. The mirror protocol. When someone opposes you, do not argue. Argument is pure friction. Instead, look them in the eyes and mentally tell them, "You have no will of your own in my kingdom. You bend to my purpose because you are part of my projection." The actor. Reconfiguration. Change the image you have of that person in your mind. If you see them as an obstacle, they will be a wall. If you see them as a docile collaborator, their atoms will rearrange so that their actions benefit you, even without them knowing why they are doing it. Sacrifice is the currency of slaves. We have been taught that to obtain something valuable, we must lose something in return. This idea of equivalent exchange is a law of friction designed to keep you limited. In the economy of omnipotence, there is no loss, only expansion. Resistance is born from the fear of scarcity. When you try to save energy, thoughts, or resources for fear that they will run out, you are admitting that the universe is finite. That belief solidifies the matter around you. To nullify this friction, you must act from offensive abundance. Spend your intention, spend your vision, and act with the security of one who knows that the source is inexhaustible. Matter flows where there are no mental dams. You can apply all the techniques in this book, but if you allow a single drop of doubt to enter your consciousness, you have reintroduced friction. Doubt is like sandpaper in the gears of a perfect engine. It turns what should be a smooth movement into an unbearable screech that stops manifestation. Doubt is not a thought, it is a low vibration frequency. It disguises itself as realism or prudence. The dictator is not prudent, he is certain. To nullify doubt, you must develop a selective memory. Forget your past failures. Erase from your mind the times matter resisted. If you keep the memory of resistance alive, you are inviting resistance into your present. The past has no power unless you use it as construction material for your today. Even when it seems that matter has won a battle, when something goes wrong, the initiate knows that this is only an adjustment friction. Sometimes, reality needs to demolish an old structure before building the palace you have dictated. If you resist apparent failure, you stop the reconstruction process. If you embrace it as part of the collapse of the old resistance, you accelerate the arrival of the result. Nothing is an obstacle if you decide it is a stepping stone. Absolute authority means that you define the meaning of every event. If you say a delay is actually a preparation for something greater, then it is. Matter has no voice to say otherwise. We reach the end of this collapse process. At this point, the listener should feel a physical lightness. The sensation that the world weighs must have disappeared. Matter has surrendered, not because you have defeated it in a war, but because you have stopped recognizing it as an opponent. When the observer is sovereign, the observed has no choice but to be docile. You are the architect walking through a construction site where the bricks levitate to place themselves simply because you have looked at the blueprint. Remember, friction is the echo of your own insecurity. Eliminate insecurity and you will walk on water, pass through the walls of scarcity, and see how the entire universe bows before the weight of your silent presence. The throne is empty. It only waits for you to sit on it and stop asking for permission to exist. Chapter 3: The Dictator's Frequency. Imagine that the quantum field is an infinitely sensitive radio receiver. It does not listen to your words. It does not care about your prayers, your cries, or your vision boards stuck to the fridge. The universe only listens to one thing: your fundamental tone. The majority of human beings spend their lives moving the dial of their consciousness between static noise and interference. They try to manifest wealth while their frequency emits scarcity. They try to manifest love while their frequency emits abandonment. It is physically impossible to receive a signal from 100.1 FM if your radio is tuned to 88.0. This is the technical manual for calibrating your transmitter. This is where we stop being cosmic beggars to become the station programmers. The dictator is not a figure of external tyranny, but of absolute internal sovereignty. He is the one who dictates the frequency, and therefore dictates reality. The frequency of supplication is the frequency in which 99% of humanity vibrates. It disguises itself in many forms: faith, hope, petition, prayer, anxious visualization. But beneath all those layers, there is a rotten core, the belief that power is outside of you. When you ask for something please from the universe, you are emitting a signal of lack. You are screaming into the void, "I don't have it." And as we already learned, the universe is a perfect mirror. If you emit "I don't have it," the universe returns circumstances that confirm that indeed you do not have it. Symptoms of the supplication frequency. Waiting. If you are waiting for something to happen, you are in supplication. The dictator does not wait. The dictator observes how his order is executed. False anticipated gratitude. Giving thanks in the hope that it will force the universe to give you something is a form of manipulation from lack. Real gratitude is the recognition of a present possession. Justification. Feeling that you must explain to the universe, or to yourself, why you deserve something. Deservedness is a concept for slaves. On the throne, there is no such thing as deserving. There is only will. The command frequency is radically different. It is a clean, coherent, and high-power signal. There is no noise, no doubt, no maybe. It is the tone you use when you take for granted something as basic as the sun rising tomorrow or the ground supporting your feet. The dictator does not ask permission from the atoms to reorganize themselves. The dictator assumes that matter is his subject. This tuning is characterized by a frigid calm. There is no overexcitation. Extreme emotion, the euphoria over a manifestation, is, ironically, a sign of supplication, because it implies that what happened is a surprise. It implies it is a miracle, not a logical consequence of your command. The pillars of command frequency, the assumption of identity. You are not trying to be rich, healthy, or powerful. You are the consciousness that already possesses those states. The frequency of being instantly cancels the frequency of wanting. The imperative word. Your internal dialogue changes from "I would like" to "it is." It is my will, it is done, it manifests now. Indifference to delay. A dictator does not go out onto the balcony every 5 minutes to see if his army has arrived. He knows the army is on its way because he gave the order. That tranquility is what accelerates quantum time. To emit at the command frequency, you must understand how a command is constructed. A command is not a positive thought. It is a sentence of reality. When a judge dictates a sentence, he is not suggesting a result. He is declaring a new legal reality. From that moment on, the entire system moves to fulfill that word. Your mind is the judge, and the universe is the police and administrative system that must execute the order. Friction occurs when the judge doubts his own jurisdiction. If you do not believe you have the right to command your health, your money, or your time, the system, matter, will ignore your order. The dictator's frequency is born from the understanding that you are the only legal authority in your sphere of existence. No higher force can veto your decree unless you create that force in your imagination. Hope is the drug of those who have no power. It is a passive state that projects the result toward a non-existent future. In the audiobook, we must emphasize that to enter the command frequency, the listener must murder hope. Hope is the recognition of the possibility of failure. The dictator operates in certainty. When you replace hope with certainty, your radio frequency signal becomes so powerful that it pierces any wall of physical resistance. Certainty is the laser that cuts through the static of supplication, the noise of supplication versus the silence of command. There is a universal law that most spiritual seekers ignore. Power does not scream. Supplication is noisy, full of words, rituals, lit candles, agonizing visualizations, and decrees repeated 1,000 times in the hope that they finally work. All that noise is proof that there is no faith, only desperation. Desperation is the lowest frequency of mental radio. It is a cry for help that only attracts more situations of help. The dictator, on the other hand, operates in absolute silence. When a sovereign gives an order, he does not need to repeat it. The order is given once, with the coldness of one who knows that the laws of physics are on his side. In the audiobook, we must teach the listener that the moment he stops talking about his desire is the moment the desire begins to solidify. Silence is the vacuum into which matter rushes. Talking about your plans with others, or even obsessively ruminating on them in your mind, is like opening the oven before the bread is ready. You let the heat of manifestation escape, and the result collapses. To move from supplication to command, you must perform what we call the identity leap. You cannot command wealth while being a poor man who wants money. You must be the consciousness of wealth, observing the world through the eyes of a body that is still processing the remnants of the past. The command frequency is present possession. It is not, I am going to have, it is, this is mine now. Matter is slow, it is lazy, it takes time to reflect what consciousness has already determined. The trap into which supplicants fall is that they look at their bank account or their current health and say, "See, nothing has changed, I'm still the same." In that second, they have tuned back into the frequency of lack. They have allowed the reflection in the mirror to tell them who they are, instead of being the ones who dictate the image to the mirror. The dictator looks at physical scarcity and smiles with a frigid superiority. He knows that what he sees is a corpse, a remnant of yesterday's thought. He does not grant it reality. His frequency remains undisturbed in wealth, health, or power, until matter, overwhelmed by the persistence of that signal, has no choice but to reorganize itself to match the intensity of the transmitter. When you decide to tune into the command frequency, the outside world, the matrix of normalcy, will try to detune you. Your friends will tell you about the crisis, the news will show you tragedies, and your own senses will remind you of your limitations. This is the test of quantum authority. The dictator practices sovereign contempt for apparent facts. Facts are simply the crystallization of old beliefs. If you accept facts as the absolute truth, you become their subject. If you see them as temporary suggestions, you retain command. Your frequency must be a bunker. Do not allow the frequency of others' doubt to contaminate your signal. If someone tells you your goal is impossible, do not argue. Simply observe that person as a secondary character who has not yet read the new script you are writing. Their opinion has no atomic power over your reality, unless you grant them the right to reply. We are not just talking about spirit, we are talking about flesh and chemistry. When you tune into the command frequency, your brain changes. The amygdala, the center of fear, quiets down. The prefrontal cortex lights up with strategic clarity. Emitting in command reduces cortisol and increases testosterone and dopamine. This internal chemistry acts as a perception filter. The supplicant only sees obstacles because his brain is in survival mode. The dictator sees opportunities, cracks in reality, and shortcuts that fear made invisible. The command frequency grants you X-ray vision over matter. You see where the resistance is weak and where you can apply minimum mental pressure to obtain the maximum physical result. Command tuning culminates in a state of deep relaxation that the ancients called Sabbath or rest. It is the feeling that there is nothing left to do because the word has been sent and will not return empty. When the listener reaches this state, the friction of matter, Chapter 2, completely disappears. Reality becomes soft, events begin to conspire in their favor, and the right people appear out of nowhere. This is not magic, it is frequency alignment. You have stopped fighting the reflection and started being the source. The universe has no choice but to obey you, not out of fear, but by natural law. The shadow must follow the body. Reality must follow the command frequency. Turn off the noise. Stop asking permission from the world to be what you already are. The universe is a faithful dog that only recognizes the voice of its master. For too long you have whispered in fear, and the universe has ignored your pleas. Today, learn to speak with the vibration of thunder and the silence of deep space. Tune into the frequency of the one who commands, and watch how chaos kneels to become your path. You are not in the world. The world projects from you. Dictate your law, now. Chapter 4. The Veil of Doubt. Doubt is not a personality weakness or a character trait. Doubt is a frequency virus with a single objective: to dismantle your authority before matter can obey you. If the universe is a mechanism that responds to the strongest signal, doubt is the interference that cancels that signal. At the moment you allow doubt to enter your field of consciousness, you have abdicated the throne. You have gone from being the architect who designs reality to being the prisoner who questions whether the walls of his cell are real. For the dictator of his own existence, doubt is the only conceivable sin. It is not because it is morally wrong, but because it is technically destructive. Doubt introduces a variable of uncertainty into an equation that requires an absolute resolution to collapse the wave function. If the command is, "This is mine," and doubt adds a, "What if it's not?" the quantum result is a blurred probability. This translates into physical stagnation. Doubt is the glue that keeps undesired situations frozen in time. The anatomy of hesitation. Doubt usually disguises itself as rationality. It whispers in your ear to be realistic, to observe statistics, to look at your past, and to consider the probabilities of failure. But realism is the prison of the common mind. The dictator knows that reality is a byproduct of observation, not a cause. Accepting current facts as a reason to doubt is like letting the mirror tell you how to comb your hair. It is an error of direction. Reality must follow consciousness, never the other way around. 3 layers of doubt will try to besiege your throne. The first is sensory doubt. What you see, smell, and touch seems to contradict your decree. If you have decreed opulence and your bank account shows red numbers, your senses will scream that you have failed. The sovereign ignores this scream. He understands that the senses are slow informants who only report news from the past. What you see today is the corpse of what you thought yesterday. Do not grant the power of doubt to a dead thing. The second layer is intellectual doubt, the process of the how. Your logical mind will try to map the path from where you are to where you want to be, and finding no logical bridge, it will generate doubt. You must understand that the how is not the jurisdiction of the command. The how is the work of docile matter reorganizing itself. When you worry about the process, you are admitting that you do not trust the power of your own word. A king orders a bridge to be built. He does not need to know how many nails were used or where the wood came from. Interest in the process is a renunciation of power. The third and most dangerous is identity doubt, the feeling that you are not enough of something for the universe to obey you. This is the doubt that feeds on guilt, the past, and social labels. But in pure metaphysics, identity is not earned, it is assumed. You do not need external permission to be the master of your reality. The only authority that can validate your command is yourself. If you do not believe you are the owner, the universe does not have an owner to obey. Contempt as a tool of power. The way to destroy doubt is not to fight it. Fighting doubt is giving it importance, and importance generates more resistance. Doubt is destroyed through contempt. You must look at your thoughts of doubt with the same indifference you would look at a bothersome insect. Do not stop to argue with them. Do not try to convince your doubt that you are right. Simply ignore it. Silence in the face of doubt is the most powerful affirmation of authority. When the thought, "What if this doesn't work?" arises, do not respond with a desperate positive affirmation. Respond with a frigid silence. That silence is the sign that the case is closed and the verdict has been issued. Doubt can only survive if there is a dialogue. By cutting off communication, doubt dies for lack of attention. The void of unshakable certainty. Certainty is not an emotion of euphoria. It is a deep void. It is the total absence of the need for confirmation. When you know something is true, you do not need to shout it or prove it. The sun does not need to prove it is the center of the solar system. It simply shines, and everything else orbits around it by gravitational necessity. Your will must be that sun. To maintain the throne, you must develop a metaphysical stubbornness. You must be able to walk through a fire of contrary evidence without your pulse quickening. If the whole world tells you that you have lost, but you maintain the internal command that you have already won, the whole world will have to back down. Matter is cowardly before the presence of a consciousness that does not blink. The veil of doubt is as thin as silk, but only those who dare to tear it with the sword of absolute certainty can see the universe as it is, an obedient and docile reflection of their own gaze. The sovereign's selective memory and the collapse of timelines. To hold the scepter of command, the initiate must understand. Doubt is not only an intrusion of the future in the form of fear, but a persistence of the past in the form of memory. Most human beings carry a detailed record of their limitations, of the times matter resisted, and of the moments their decrees fell into a void. That memory is the anchor of doubt. To nullify the veil, the dictator must practice selective amnesia. It is not an accidental forgetting, but a deliberate purge of any information that contradicts his current state of power. If a memory does not serve your present authority, that memory is a betrayal. Ordinary memory is the slave's archive. The slave consults his failures to decide what is possible today. The sovereign, however, rewrites his personal history every time he issues a new command. If you have decided that opulence is your natural state, you must erase from your nervous system the frequency of past scarcity. You cannot project a success film if the projector still has remnants of a tragedy on the lens. The veil of doubt feeds on continuity. It believes that because yesterday was one way, today must follow the same inertia. Breaking doubt is breaking the continuity of linear time. The engineering of temporal collapse. Time is the greatest tool of doubt. Doubt tells you, it hasn't happened yet, therefore it isn't real. This gap between the decree and the physical manifestation is the ground where doubt plants its seeds. To nullify this friction, the dictator must operate from the collapse of timelines. This means that in your consciousness, the interval between the command and the receipt is zero. The moment the order leaves your will, the event has already occurred in the only dimension that matters, the dimension of primary causality. When you inhabit the end, doubt loses its sustenance. You cannot doubt something you already possess. If you walk through your house and know the keys are in your pocket, you don't spend the day visualizing the keys or decreeing that the keys will appear. You simply know they are there. That naturalness, that absence of mental effort, is the sign that you have collapsed time. Doubt is the symptom that you still perceive yourself in the process of arriving, instead of perceiving yourself in the state of being. The process is an illusion of dense matter. The state is the truth of the sovereign spirit. The disintegration of contrary evidence. As you advance in command, physical reality will present resistance. In a last attempt at resistance, it will present what we call extreme contrary evidence. It is the moment when everything seems to go exactly in the opposite direction of your decree. The business seems to finally fail. Health seems to worsen. The relationship seems to break beyond repair. To the untrained eye, this is a sign of failure. For the dictator, this is the collapse of the veil. Contrary evidence is often the death rattle of the old reality. Before a structure reorganizes, it must crumble completely. Doubt arises here because the human being fears the void. But the void is the space necessary for new creation. If you let yourself be deceived by the appearance of chaos, you reaffirm the chaos. If, on the other hand, you look at destruction with the calm of one who knows he is demolishing a shack to build a palace, doubt has nowhere to anchor. Your gaze must be so heavy that it bends the light of facts. If you do not recognize the disaster has no substance to sustain itself in your experience. The shielding of the command field. The enemy of the throne does not only come from within, but from resonance with other minds living under the veil. We live in a soup of collective doubts. The educational system, the economy, and culture are designed to make you doubt your operational divinity. To protect your command, you must create a veil of immunity. This is achieved through vibratory isolation. Do not allow small minds to discuss your great visions. The doubt of another can act as a catalyst for your own doubt if you grant it emotional validity. The dictator does not seek advice, he seeks execution. If you feel the need to ask, "Do you think this will work?" you have already lost. By asking, you are admitting that the opinion of another has the power to validate your reality. You have put your throne to a vote. The universe does not obey democracies, it obeys absolute monarchies of consciousness. Your word is the ultimate law, and a law does not need the subjects to agree to be effective. Shielding consists of understanding that you are the only real observer in your universe. Others are just actors playing the role that your frequency has assigned them. If they doubt you, it is because you, at some level, have doubted yourself and programmed them to reflect that uncertainty. The consummation of frigid certainty. Doubt dies of starvation. It does not die from combat. It dies when you stop feeding it with your attention, with your fear, and with your explanations. The final state of Chapter 4 is frigid certainty. It is not a state of manic joy, but a state of absolute calm, almost indifferent. It is the peace of one who has won the war before the first battle begins. When the veil of doubt is finally torn, matter becomes transparent. You begin to see the threads that move events. You realize that the outer world is as docile as a dream. Doubt was the only thing giving solidity to your problems. By withdrawing doubt, problems lose their atomic weight and scatter like smoke. You have reclaimed the throne not because you have defeated an external enemy, but because you have stopped being your own saboteur. The only enemy of the throne has been executed by the silence of your authority. Now the universe has no choice but to obey you, because there is no longer an internal voice saying otherwise. Chapter 5, Biology of Omnipotence. The greatest lie that materialistic science has imprinted on the human psyche is the notion that the body is a destiny. We have been taught that we are prisoners of our heritage, slaves to a genetic code written before our birth, and victims of biological processes that occur outside of our control. In the metaphysics of command, this vision is a total abdication. The body is not a prison, it is the most advanced hardware in the known universe, and your consciousness is the programmer who has access to the command console of the atomic database. The biology of omnipotence begins with the recognition that your cells have no will. Each of the trillions of cells that make up your organism is a subject waiting for orders. They are not autonomous entities that decide to get sick, age, or fail. They are frequency receivers. What you call health or disease is simply the physical crystallization of the signal that your consciousness is emitting 24 hours a day. If you emit a signal of fear, stress, and limitation, your cells configure themselves into survival mode, degrading their function. If you emit a signal of command, of sovereignty, and of power, the DNA rearranges itself to sustain that superior frequency. DNA as a reprogrammable quantum antenna, cutting-edge science is beginning to touch. The truth that the dictators of reality have always known: DNA is not a closed book, it is an antenna. The 98% of DNA, which official science called junk DNA for decades, is actually the most important part of the code. It is the quantum antenna that receives information from the field of consciousness and translates it into instructions. Your DNA is not a death sentence, it is software in constant update. Every thought of authority, every decree issued from the throne of your consciousness, alters the genetic expression of your cells. This process is called epigenetics in the academic world, but in our realm it is called cellular dictatorship. You do not ask your cells to heal, you dictate the perfection of the form. DNA is malleable. It responds to coherent intention. When you manage to align your will with the image of an invulnerable body, the junk DNA begins to encode new proteins, to repair telomeres, and to reverse processes of degeneration that the world deems inevitable. The chemistry of command versus the chemistry of supplication. Just as in the previous chapter we spoke of radio tuning, in biology we speak of chemical tuning. The state of supplication, Fear, anxiety about the future, doubt about one's own capacity, generates a torrent of cortisol and adrenaline. These are the hormones of the slave. They keep the body in a state of constant alert, consuming vital resources and blocking any attempt at deep regeneration. Under cortisol, the body is at war with itself, and the resistance of matter becomes maximal. The dictator's frequency, on the contrary, generates the chemistry of omnipotence. When you assume your absolute authority, the brain releases optimal levels of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. But more importantly, it activates the pineal gland to produce compounds that expand perception. This chemistry does not just make you feel powerful. It changes the conductivity of your nervous system. You become a more efficient conductor for the energy of manifestation. A body flooded by the chemistry of command does not know fatigue in the traditional sense, because it feeds directly from the source of consciousness, not just from the combustion of glucose, the disintegration of the belief in old age and decay. One of the thickest veils we must tear is that of the inevitability of biological deterioration. Old age is, to a large extent, a collective software program. Since you are a child, you are programmed to expect your faculties to diminish, your skin to wrinkle, and your energy to deplete. By accepting this script, you give a collective order to your cells to start failing at predetermined dates. The dictator of his biology rejects the script of the masses. To rewrite your DNA, you must stop observing the passage of time as an external force that wears you down. Time has no power over consciousness, and if the body is a projection of consciousness, the body does not have to obey chronological time. Cellular regeneration is constant. In a 7-year period, practically every atom of your body has been replaced. Why then does the body recreate a scar or a chronic illness? Because the memory of consciousness continues projecting the same defective image onto the new atoms. By changing the image on the throne of your mind, you force the new atoms to group under a design of eternal renewal. The protocol of atomic transmutation. To rewrite DNA from consciousness, external rituals are not required. It requires an imposition of will. You must learn to speak to your body not as a stranger, but as your own creation. The disidentification from form. You must understand that you are not your body. You are the consciousness that inhabits and projects it. By disidentifying, you cease to be subject to the laws that govern dense matter. The central command, in the state of silence we have practiced, enter the structure of your cells. Visualize the genetic code not as something fixed, but as vibrating filaments of light. Introduce your decree. I order absolute perfection. I order inexhaustible vitality. My code aligns with my will to power. The ignorance of symptoms. If the body presents a symptom of weakness or pain, the dictator treats it with frigid indifference. By paying attention to the pain, you give it energy and make it real. By ignoring it and remaining firm in the decree of health, you remove the substrate that keeps it alive. The body must, finally, surrender to the strongest mental image. The biology of abundance. Health is not just the absence of disease. It is the excess of energy. A body in the dictator's frequency is a dynamo that generates more energy than it consumes. This biological abundance is what allows you to have the aura of authority. We will speak of this later. When your cells vibrate in the frequency of omnipotence, you emit an electromagnetic field so powerful that reality around you begins to bend without you having to say a single word. People feel it. Matter feels it. You are radiating command from your own DNA. The biology of omnipotence is the end of the victim role. You can no longer blame your parents, your genes, or the environment. If your body does not reflect the power you desire, it is because your command is not yet absolute. It is because you still allow the veil of doubt to contaminate your cellular signal. Clean the signal. Assume the throne of your own flesh, and watch how what the world calls miracles becomes your daily biological standard. The body does not only store fat, water, and minerals. The body is a bioelectric archive of traumas, failures, and inherited limitations. What psychology calls the subconscious, the metaphysics of command, identifies as cellular memory. Every cell of your organism has a survival memory that goes back millennia. It is a memory of fear, of scarcity, and of death. To rewrite DNA from consciousness, the dictator must execute an ethnic cleansing of cellular memory. You must purge the records of impossibility that your cells have accepted as laws. Cellular memory is the reason why, even if you decree wealth, your body feels a tightness in the chest when seeing a bill. Your mind says, "I am abundant," but your cells scream, "We are hungry." That dissonance is what stops manifestation. The biology of omnipotence requires that command descends from the brain to the fingertips. You must flood every corner of your flesh with the frequency of success until your cells no longer remember how fear feels. When you get your biology to believe in your divinity, outer matter has no choice but to capitulate. The world is only an echo of what your cells have already accepted as truth. Biophotonic light, the language of command. Science has discovered that cells communicate with each other not only through chemical signals, but through ultra-weak flashes of light called biophotons. Your body is, literally, a body of light wrapped in a dense layer of atoms. The dictator of reality understands that these biophotons are the messengers of his will. When you emit a command from the throne of consciousness, you are modulating the light emitted by your cells. A fragmented and doubtful consciousness emits chaotic light. A sovereign consciousness emits coherent light, similar to a laser. Biophotonic coherence is what allows the body to perform functions that traditional medicine classifies as impossible. The instant regeneration of tissues and immunity are light management processes. The stopping of the biological clock is part of this. If you can maintain the image of your physical perfection with sufficient intensity, you are forcing your biophotons to carry that blueprint to every enzymatic process. You are illuminating your DNA with the frequency of command. In this state, the body becomes an accelerator. It is an accelerator for your desires. The collapse of disease as an external entity. For the sovereign, disease is not something that hits you or that your body catches. Disease is a misalignment of the command frequency. It is a territory of your body where you have stopped exercising your authority. You have allowed collective suggestion to take control. If you accept the idea that a virus or a genetic condition has more power than your will, you have handed over the keys to your kingdom. Rewriting DNA involves withdrawing recognition of any external power over your physiology. When the dictator faces a symptom, he does not fight it. Struggle is recognition of power. Instead, the dictator withdraws his attention from the symptom and places it on the original matrix. The original matrix is the design of perfection that exists in the quantum field for your body. By observing the matrix and not the symptom, you collapse the reality of health over the appearance of disease. Your cells, being docile, abandon the disease configuration because they no longer receive the sustenance of your observation. Healing is not a process of struggle. It is a process of remembering command. The sovereign's nutrition, feeding the frequency. In the biology of omnipotence, nutrition goes beyond calories and macronutrients. The dictator understands that what he introduces into his body is information. But the most powerful information does not come from food, but from intention over matter. Most people are slaves to diets because they believe food has power over them. The sovereign inverts the equation. He has power over the food. You can ingest the densest substance, but if your command frequency is high enough, your body will transmute it into pure fuel. Conversely, you can eat the purest food, but if you do it from fear of disease or obsession with health, that food will carry the frequency of doubt to your cells. The true nutrition of the dictator is metabolic certainty. It is the direct order to your digestive system that everything that crosses your lips becomes power. It becomes beauty and vitality. You are rewriting your body's chemical response to external matter. The pineal gland, the atomic command console. In the center of your brain exists a biological transducer designed to connect pure consciousness with dense matter, the pineal gland. In the state of supplication, this gland is calcified and dormant, limited by the perception of the five senses. In the dictator's frequency, the pineal activates and begins to secrete metabolites that allow the vision of the second reality, where matter is still malleable. Activating the biology of omnipotence requires the sovereign to learn to pressurize this energy center. Through command breathing and internal silence, a piezoelectric current is generated that activates the calcite crystals of the gland. At that moment, you have direct access to the source code of your DNA. From that console, you can perform real-time changes in your physiology. You can lower inflammation, increase growth hormone production, or simply reprogram your stress response. You are the hacker of your own biological system. The incorruptible body, the final goal. The ultimate goal of rewriting DNA from consciousness is to reach what we call the body of authority, a body that is not affected by fluctuations in the environment, that does not succumb to the collective hysteria of pandemics, and that does not obey the law of wear and tear. It reflects the immortality of consciousness. This is not a promise for the future. It is a present possibility for the one who dares to let go of the veil of doubt and assume total command. Your body is the first laboratory where you will prove that the universe has no choice but to obey you. If you can force your cells to rejuvenate, you can force the markets. You will force financial markets to favor you and events to coincide with your plans. Mastery over DNA is the litmus test of the dictator. If you are the master of your flesh, you are the master of your destiny. Chapter 6. Forced Synchronicity. The world walks blindly, attributing its successes to chance and its failures to bad luck. People call synchronicity those magical moments where the phone rings with the expected offer just as they were thinking about it, or where they find a key person in an airport hallway. For the common man, this is a gift or a statistical anomaly. For the dictator of consciousness, fortuitous coincidence does not exist. What exists is forced synchronicity, the technical ability to collapse probability lines so that the desired event is the only possible physical outcome. Synchronicity is not something that happens to you, it is something you emit. The universe has no agenda of its own. It is an automatic response mechanism. If events in your life seem messy, contradictory, or slow, it is because your command signal is weak, fragmented, or full of interference. Forcing synchronicity means clearing your frequency, so the fabric of reality has no choice but to fold upon itself. It folds to join point A, your desire, with point B, the manifestation, without time or space acting as resistance. To understand how to force events to coincide, we must visualize consciousness not as a cloud of thoughts, but as a critical mass. In relativistic physics, an object with great mass curves the space-time around it. It forces other smaller objects to orbit or fall toward it. In the metaphysics of command, your will is that mass. Most people have a mental mass so light and volatile that they attract nothing. They are the ones orbiting the desires of others or the circumstances of the system. Forcing synchronicity requires you to increase density. When an idea is held with frigid certainty and absolute authority, it becomes quantumly heavy. At that moment, you stop chasing opportunities. Opportunities, people, and resources begin to be sucked toward your center of gravity. You do not seek them. They fall toward you because space-time has curved by order of your command. The collapse of the eventual wave function. At the subatomic level, all possibilities exist simultaneously. There is a timeline where you are already an absolute success and another where you have failed. The secret of forced synchronicity is the prolonged observer effect. Doubt is what makes reality fluctuate between success and failure. But when the dictator observes the final result with a fixedness that does not blink, the wave of possibility is forced to collapse into a particle of fact. Forced synchronicity is the pressure you exert on the quantum field to choose the option you have dictated. You are not asking the universe to choose well. You are blocking all other exits for it. You are closing the doors of unwanted results through absolute contempt for their existence. When the universe sees there is no other acceptable possibility in your consciousness, the event has no choice but to materialize. Coincidence is simply the universe surrendering to your observation. The engineering of the bridge of incidents. Neville Goddard spoke of the bridge of incidents, that series of seemingly unrelated events that lead to your goal. However, in forced synchronicity, we do not wait for the bridge to appear. We dynamite it so that only one path remains available. The bridge of incidents is the logistical response of matter to a command of authority. If you have dictated imminent wealth, forced synchronicity can manifest as a bug in a system. A wrong call that turns out to be a strategic partner, or a trip cancellation that puts you in the exact place at the right time. To the outside observer, it looks like luck. To you, it is the mechanics of docile matter reordering itself. Matter is lazy and prefers to follow the law of least effort. If your command is powerful enough, the path of least effort for the universe is to give you what you want, instead of resisting your will. The greatest barrier to forcing synchronicity is the obsession with time. Time is the measure of resistance. If something takes time, it is because there is friction in your signal. The dictator operates from the eternal present. Forcing an event to coincide requires that in your mind, the event has already occurred. When you remove the anxiety of when, you remove the resistance. Anxiety sends a signal of, I don't have it. This pushes the event away. The certainty of it is mine attracts the event with dizzying speed. Forced synchronicity occurs when you stop looking at the clock and start looking at the result with the tranquility of someone who has already paid for a product and only waits for the messenger to knock on the door. That calm is the most powerful quantum accelerator in existence. The universe hurries to serve the one who is not in a hurry because he already feels like the owner of everything. The protocol of directional intention. To force events to coincide, the sovereign uses directional intention. This is a projection of laser will. Target isolation. Define the event with surgical precision. Do not ask for success. Dictate a specific contract, an exact figure, a determined encounter. Field saturation. Flood your electromagnetic field with the frequency of that already consummated event. Your aura must emit the signal that this event is a natural part of you. Contempt for appearance. If current events seem to go against you, ignore them. Forced synchronicity sometimes uses initial chaos to reorganize the pieces. An earthquake precedes the construction of a new city. Maintain command while the pieces move, even if the movement appears chaotic. There is a vital difference between desperate action and inspired action. Desperate action creates friction and pushes synchronicity away. The dictator knows when to withdraw and let matter work. Once the command has been issued with the necessary power, any attempt to help the universe from fear only spoils the frequency. Forcing synchronicity sometimes means staying still. It means having the strength of character not to intervene when matter seems not to move. That stillness is a sign of supreme authority. It is telling the universe, I know you have heard me, and I know you are working for me. Miracles happen in that gap of silence. The event is forced to appear not by your physical effort, but by the magnitude of your internal immobility. The universe hates a vacuum and rushes to fill it with the realization of your mandate. The architecture of luck, building nodes of coincidence. To the profane, luck is a capricious phenomenon that falls on the chosen like random rain. For the sovereign, luck is a structure built through density of intention. A node of coincidence is a point in space-time where multiple variables, people, and resources converge in a single instant to serve your purpose. These nodes do not happen by accident. They are woven in the loom of consciousness before manifesting in the fabric of reality. When you emit a command, you are sending threads of frequency into the future. These threads act as electromagnetic hooks that catch the possibilities that resonate with your order. Forcing synchronicity consists of tightening those threads with such force that external variables are forced to shift from their original trajectory. If a person key to your success did not plan to be in your city, your quantum tension can generate an unforeseen event in their schedule that forces them to travel. This is not magic. It is the logistical reordering of matter before a will that admits no opposition. Luck is simply the name the weak give to the efficiency of an absolute command. The manipulation of external will in synchronicity. One of the greatest psychological obstacles is the belief in the independence of other actors. You believe that a CEO, a buyer, or a judge has a will of their own that can clash with yours. This belief creates massive friction. In the metaphysics of command, you must understand that others are data terminals within your field of influence. When your command frequency is coherent, others start having ideas that benefit you. They believe they are their own ideas, but in reality, they are responding to the instruction field you have projected. Forced synchronicity often manifests as someone calling you out of nowhere to offer exactly what you needed. It wasn't chance. It was your electromagnetic field hacking their thought process. To force these encounters, you must stop seeing people as obstacles and start seeing them as chess pieces moving according to the gravity of your purpose. You do not need to convince anyone physically if you have already convinced them vibrationally. Forced synchronicity is rarely an isolated event. It works by the cascade effect. Once you get the first piece of matter to bend to your will, a gap is created in the resistance of reality. That first coincidence acts as a proof of concept for your subconscious, raising your certainty to stratospheric levels. In that moment, the friction of matter disappears almost completely. An expert dictator uses the first small synchronicity to feed the fire of his authority. If you got a traffic light to turn green just when you needed it, use that small victory to confirm your dominance over matter. Do not dismiss it as trivial. By giving it the meaning of command fulfilled, you are programming the universe.
You are programming the universe so the next coincidence is on a larger scale, a contract, a healing, a fortune. Synchronicity feeds on the attention you give it. If you celebrate coincidence as proof of your power, the universe accelerates the flow of events. You are creating an avalanche of coinciding facts.
The void of waiting, the art of executive indifference. The greatest threat to forcing synchronicity is anxious surveillance. When you issue a command and then sit back to watch the clock, wondering when the signal will arrive, you are injecting a frequency of lack into the system. Surveillance is the confession that you do not believe the order has been received. The dictator practices executive indifference. He gives the order and goes about his business with the assurance that the universe is his most efficient employee. This indifference is what actually forces the event. It is a vacuum of importance that sucks the manifestation toward the present. The universe rushes to fill spaces where there is no mental resistance. If you are too busy wanting something to happen, you are occupying the space that the event needs to materialize. By letting go of importance and maintaining only certainty, you leave the path clear for synchronicity to manifest directly. The event does not arrive because you seek it. It arrives because there is nothing in you pushing it away with doubt or urgency. The consummation of the event map. Forcing synchronicity is, ultimately, becoming the cartographer of your own destiny. You no longer navigate a sea of uncertainty. You draw the coast. You decide the wind and dictate the position of the stars. Matter has no direction of its own. It moves toward where consciousness projects its heaviest shadow. When you reach this level of command, life stops being a struggle and becomes a ceremony of recognition. You wake up every day to see how reality has reconfigured. Reality reconfigures overnight to fulfill your decrees. Forced synchronicity is the final proof that the universe has no choice but to obey you. It is not a petition to heaven. It is a law of quantum physics applied with the coldness of a sovereign. You have entered the realm of primary causality. Events coincide because you are the point of origin. Reality is docile, time is malleable, and coincidences are your servants. Walk with the certainty of someone who has already seen the end of the movie and knows that, regardless of the script's twists, the outcome is exactly what you have dictated. Chapter 7. The Void as a Capture Tool. The Metaphysics of Suction and the Quantum Horror Vacui. In the physical universe, a vacuum is not a passive nothingness. It is one of the most potent and terrifying forces of nature. Physics teaches us that nature abhors a vacuum, horror vacui. When a space without matter is created, the universe reacts with immediate violence to fill it. A pressure differential creates a hurricane. A vacuum in space sucks in everything within its reach. In the metaphysics of command, the void is not a lack. It is a strategic capture tool. Most humans make the mistake of trying to fill their reality with visualizations, affirmations, noise, and desperate actions. They are trying to push matter into their lives. The dictator, instead, creates a deliberate void in their consciousness and environment. They understand that if they manage to create a frequency whole pure enough, the universe will have no physical choice but to rush manifestation into that space. It does this to balance quantum pressure. You do not chase the result. You create the space where the result has no choice but to exist. Why doesn't the new arrive? Because you are full of the old. You are full of your opinions on why things don't work, full of contingency plans and full of fears. Above all, you are full of the importance you give to your desires. That mental fullness is a solid that occupies the space of manifestation. The universe looks at your life and sees there is no room for the new contract, the new health, or the new fortune because your attention is saturated. The void as a capture tool requires you to learn to vacate your consciousness. You must empty yourself of need, doubt, and the identity of the seeker. The seeker is full of seeking. The owner is empty because they already possess. When you achieve that state of absolute vacuity regarding a topic, a state where there is no longer internal dialogue, questions, or anxiety, you have created a zone of low quantum pressure. The universe detects that void, and by the law of equilibrium, must fill it with the physical form that corresponds to your original command. Metaphysics does not occur only in the mind, it is reflected in matter. To capture a new reality, you must create physical voids in your current life. This is the principle of sovereignty cleansing. If you want a new source of income, but your days are full of insignificant activities you perform just in case, there is no void. You are communicating to the quantum field that your time is saturated. Creating a physical void means letting go of what no longer serves before the new arrives. It is an act of supreme authority. It is throwing away old clothes before buying new ones. It is resigning from a toxic client before having a replacement. It is emptying your desk drawers and your mind. By doing so, you tell the universe, I have prepared the space. The void I created is an order for immediate delivery. The universe rushes to fill those gaps because vacuity is unstable in a cosmos of abundance. The speed at which the void is filled is directly proportional to the audacity with which you created it. Speech is dense matter in the form of sound. When you talk too much about your projects, you fill the space with low-power vibrations. You are wasting the steam that should move the turbine of manifestation. The dictator uses silence as a capture tool. By refusing to discuss plans or complain about resistance, they create an acoustic void around them. This silence generates pressure on others and on matter itself. People feel the need to fill your silence with offers, information, or concessions. The universe feels the need to fill your silence with facts. Silence is the purest form of mental void. It is the recognition that the command word was already given and any additional word is an obstruction. In the audiobook, this concept must resonate as an invitation to stillness. Real power does not need to announce itself. Real power creates a void that the world despairs to fill with its attention. The technique of the quantum void box. To force the capture of an event, the sovereign practices isolating the desire within a void box in their mind. 1. Identify the desire. Take that goal that seems to resist. 2. Extract the importance. Suck out all feeling of need or urgency. Look at it as something that already happened and is now emotionally irrelevant. By removing emotion, you create the void. 3. Maintain the space. Do not allow doubt or hope to fill that place. Keep the space empty and clean. 4. The inevitable capture. Observe how, in days or hours, reality starts leaking into that void. A call, an idea, a check. Matter is being sucked into the center of your detachment. Detachment is not indifference, it is suction. Many confuse detachment with not wanting something. The dictator wants with an intensity of steel, but detaches from the process and external validation. Detachment is the act of creating the void. If you are attached, you are stuck to the current situation, which means friction and fullness. If you detach, you create a distance, and in that distance, the capture void is generated. The void is the ultimate magnet. While the supplicant tries to attract, with silk threads, hope, the dictator captures with a suction motor, void. It is the difference between trying to fish with a hook or drying the sea to collect the fish. By becoming empty of importance, you become irresistible to matter. Abundance has no choice but to flow to the point of least resistance. And there is no lower resistance than the absolute void of a sovereign mind that has already decided the case is closed. Managing the horror vacui in relationships and money. In the architecture of power, money and relationships are governed by the same fluid laws as air. Both move toward low-pressure zones. The supplicant's error is harassment. They pursue money with anxiety and people with need. By doing so, they create a high-pressure zone. This zone pushes resources away from them. The dictator, however, uses the management of horror vacui so that money and the wills of others are forced to pursue them. In the financial realm, the void is created through strategic financial detachment. This does not mean throwing money away, but withdrawing the anxious gaze from the figures. When you stop obsessively watching your bank account waiting for it to go up, you stop pressuring the money. By creating a void of importance over capital, the universe detects an anomaly. It sees a consciousness not limited by the current figure. To balance that anomaly, reality must precipitate liquidity toward you. Money is an energy that seeks low-resistance channels. If you are a void of need, you become the natural sink for surrounding abundance. In relationships and command over others, the void is the silence of authority. When you withdraw your attention from someone resisting your will, you create a void of validation. The average human cannot stand the void of being ignored by a superior consciousness. That person will feel an almost biological urgency to fill that gap with their presence, approval, or obedience. You have created a social suction. You do not need to convince anyone if you are capable of staying empty enough of need that they feel the void of your absence. Mental fasting protocols, the thought void. Mental fasting is the supreme technique to clean the quantum web of your life. Most manifestation failures are due to over-conceptualization. We think so much about the desire that we suffocate it. Mental fasting consists of deliberate periods of voluntary amnesia. During these periods, the sovereign strictly forbids themselves from thinking about their goal, visualizing it, or mentioning it. This fast generates a void of observation. In quantum physics, when the observer withdraws their gaze, the particle returns to being a wave of infinite possibility. By ceasing to look at your problem, you remove the solidity that your attention granted it. In that state of non-observation, reality is free to reconfigure at an astonishing speed. Mental fasting is the definitive signal of trust. It tells the universe your order was perfect. By emptying your mind of the goal, you allow the goal to enter your physical life. Thinking about the thing is often the obstacle to the thing itself. Environment cleansing techniques, emptying the matrix. Your physical environment is the mirror of your mental density. A house or office full of useless objects, old papers, and memories of a previous version of yourself is an environment without a void. It is a saturated matrix where there is no room for the command to materialize. Environment cleansing is not a domestic chore. It is an event capture ritual. You must execute what we call the sovereignty emptying. Elimination of inertia. Get rid of any object representing a stage of scarcity or doubt. If you keep clothes, in case you lose weight or in case money runs out, you fill your future with the frequency of lack. Toss it. Create the void. Blank spaces. Leave shelves empty, drawers empty, and walls clean. These blank spaces in your home are landing spots for new matter. They are visual invitations for the universe to deposit the resources you dictated. The aesthetic of the throne. A throne is not surrounded by clutter. Clutter is noise. The void is music. The cleaner and clearer your environment, the faster the suction of events into your reality. Physical void is the magnet that captures form. To understand why the void works, we must look at the structure of the quantum field. Reality is not a solid plane, but an interconnected energy web. Every thought and emotion creates a charge on that web. Need and doubt create heavy positive charges that generate repulsion. The void of importance and detachment create a neutral suction charge. When you achieve the state of void, you create a low-pressure zone in the quantum web of your local life. By fundamental laws of thermodynamics and fluid mechanics, the universe always seeks equilibrium, entropy. If there is a point of low pressure, your void of importance, surrounded by a field of high pressure, infinite possibilities, energy flow will inevitably head toward the low point. Synchronicity is nothing more than matter flowing toward the void you created. People call you because they feel the void of your attention. Money arrives because you stopped repelling it with the pressure of need. Health manifests because you emptied your body of the observation of illness. The void is the most powerful capture tool because it meets no resistance. You cannot fight the void, you can only be sucked into it. The dictator does not build walls. They build abysses of command where reality has no choice but to plunge. At the end of this process, the sovereign inhabits a state of pure availability. You are not seeking anything, waiting for anything, or needing anything. You are empty, and in that vacuity, you are the owner of everything that flows toward you. You have stopped being a fisherman with a small net to become the ocean itself, receiving all rivers simply by being the lowest point. The void is the secret of the dictator's silence. It is the ability to look at an immense desire and feel nothing but a cold knowledge that the space for its reception has already been cleared. The universe abhors a vacuum, and you are the master who knows how to create it. You create it to capture its inexhaustible abundance. Matter no longer resists, because it has nothing to crash against. You have won the manifestation war by becoming invisible to friction and omnipresent to suction. The throne is not a solid object. The throne is the center of a sovereign void where everything you dictate appears by the simple need of the universe to refill your presence. Chapter 8. Economy of Inevitable Abundance. For the common man, money is a solid, scarce, and difficult object to move. He sees it as pieces of paper, figures on a screen, or heavy metals that must be obtained through sweat and struggle. In the metaphysics of command, this perception is the first wall of friction we must demolish. Money is not solid, it is densified psychic energy. It is a fluid that obeys the laws of quantum hydrodynamics. Capital is not earned, it is channeled. The economy of inevitable abundance begins with the understanding that value is a projection of certainty. Gold is not valuable because of its atomic properties, but because of the collective faith placed in it. If you, as the sovereign of your reality, withdraw your faith from scarcity and place it in the inevitability of your wealth, the atoms of the financial system must reconfigure to validate your new law. Money is docile. It has no will of its own to stay away from you. If it does not flow toward your kingdom, it is because you have built mental dams of doubt and realism that stop the torrent. The owner's frequency versus the employee's frequency. Most systems of money attraction fail because the practitioner maintains the frequency of the employee. Someone who waits for a payment. Someone who depends on a boss, a market, or a sale. The employee lives in the frequency of salary supplication. The dictator, instead, operates in the universal owner's frequency. Being the owner does not mean legally possessing a company at this moment. It means possessing the frequency of ownership. An owner does not wait for money to arrive. The owner knows that money is already part of his inventory. When you stop seeing money as something that comes from outside and start seeing it as something that emanates from your presence, the polarity changes. You go from being a magnet trying to attract distant particles to being a financial sun that keeps capital in its orbit by pure command gravity. Abundance becomes inevitable when you stop being a coin hunter. You become the territory where gold prefers to rest. The collapse of debt and the friction of lack. Debt is not just a bank commitment. It is a consciousness state of negative friction. It is the constant recognition that you owe, which is the ultimate confession that you do not have. The global financial system is designed to keep you in this frequency of insufficiency. A man who owes is a man who cannot dictate orders. He can only obey to pay. To nullify the friction of debt, the sovereign must practice the mental nullification of commitment. This does not mean legally stopping payments, but stopping feeling the weight of the debt. If you look at your debts with anguish, you are giving them the power to define your reality. You are saying the bank is more powerful than your consciousness. The dictator looks at his debts as simple temporary transactions already covered by his infinite abundance. By removing the emotional charge, you remove the solidity. A debt without fear is a debt that dissolves with astonishing speed because it no longer has the sustenance of your attention to stay alive in your experience. Sovereign spending, breaking the veil of retention. One of the greatest obstacles to abundance is the retention mentality or stinginess. Stinginess is fear disguised as prudence. When you hold on to money tightly, when it hurts to pay a bill, or when you always seek the cheapest option out of fear that money won't return, you are emitting the signal of finitude. You are screaming to the universe that the flow is limited and that you are afraid it will stop. The universe, obedient, stops the flow. Sovereign spending is the act of releasing money with the elegance of one who knows the source is internal and inexhaustible. It is not about irrational squandering, but about eliminating emotional friction at the moment of exit. When you pay, You are not losing money. You are putting the fluid in motion so it returns with greater pressure. Money must circulate to stay alive. By releasing it with authority and without a trace of doubt, you are demonstrating your mastery over matter. You are declaring, I am the origin, not the deposit. This attitude of aristocratic detachment creates a suction vacuum that forces the system to replenish what has gone out, generally with quantum interest. Inevitable wealth is not built with savings. It is built with patrimonial certainty. You must develop a financial nerve so strong that market fluctuations do not alter your pulse. The dictator does not worry about inflation or crisis because he does not operate under national economy laws. He operates under the laws of his private command economy. Patrimonial certainty consists of seeing your fortune not as something that can be snatched away, but as an extension of your own body. Do you worry about running out of blood tomorrow? No, because your body produces it constantly. In the same way, your reality must produce capital. By integrating this belief into your biological DNA, as we saw in Chapter 5, money stops being an external event to become a metabolic function of your life. Abundance is inevitable because your consciousness has decided poverty is a physical impossibility. To capture the frequency of wealth, the sovereign uses the silence of opulence. Most people show off what they lack or complain about what they don't have. The dictator does neither. He does not talk about his millions before they arrive, nor does he complain about pennies while waiting. He maintains a frigid neutrality toward money. By not giving money emotional importance, you eliminate the excessive potential that usually causes blocks. Money flows where there is calm. In the audiobook, this point must be a call to the dignity of the throne. Behave as if you were already the owner of the central bank of your own existence. Do not seek offers out of necessity. Seek excellence by choice. Do not count change with anxiety. Count your blessings with authority. The universe cannot resist a consciousness that behaves with the naturalness of absolute wealth. Abundance is not a prize. It is the inevitable reflection of a command that no longer recognizes the possibility of lack. Quantum investment. Sowing in the field of non-resistance. In traditional economics, investment is based on risk, market analysis, and the hope of a future return. In quantum investment, the sovereign does not risk, he secures. Investing from command means placing your attention and resource into a project with the prior order that success is the only permitted wave function. You are not trying your luck in a business. You are impregnating matter with an intention so dense that failure finds no atomic place to hold itself. Quantum investment requires you to stop looking at external charts and start looking at the chart of your own certainty. If you invest money while feeling a knot of fear in your stomach, you have just invested in fear, not in the asset. That fear will act as a parasite that devours profitability. The dictator only moves his capital when his internal state is one of sovereign neutrality. Invest from the throne, not the trench. By doing so, money becomes an obedient soldier that goes out into the world with the specific mission of returning accompanied. There is no chance in this economy. There is a chain of command from your consciousness to the last market fluctuation. Hacking financial chance, the collapse of probability. The financial world calls chance the complexity of variables they cannot control. But for one who has mastered forced synchronicity, chance is simply a suggestion from the masses that can be hacked. Financial chance is docile before a mind that does not recognize the possibility of loss. To hack the system, you must decouple from luck and anchor yourself in primary causality. When the dictator decides a specific figure will enter his experience, he does not ask which path it will take. The path is a variable of matter. The result is a constant of the will. Hacking chance consists of holding the image of the final result with such fixedness that the universe is forced to create a bank shot of events, an unexpected sale, a forgotten inheritance, a brilliant idea, or a bank error in your favor. If you try to control the how, you limit the universe. If you release the how and dictate the what, you open infinite entry doors. Abundance becomes inevitable when you stop being a calculator of probabilities and become the dictator of consequences. Every great fortune began as a fluctuation in the vacuum of a mind. The difference between a poor dreamer and a rich dictator is the capacity for transmutation of idea into mass. The idea is subtle energy. Money is dense energy. To densify an idea, you must apply the pressure of constant observation and the elimination of doubt. The economy of inevitable abundance treats your ideas as tangible assets. Do not say, "I have an idea." Say, "I have capital in the condensation phase." By changing the language, you change the response of the financial DNA. When you treat your visions with the respect you would give a gold bar, matter starts to cluster around that vision. Money flows toward ideas that have the gravity of conviction. If your idea is volatile and you change your mind every week, there is no gravity. There is no capture. If your idea is a fixed point in your mental sky, the world's gold will be sucked toward that center. In this command economy, the act of giving is not a moral obligation, but a technical suction maneuver. When you hand over a part of your wealth without a trace of pain or attachment, you are creating a pressure vacuum in your personal financial field. As we saw in Chapter 7, the universe abhors a vacuum. By detaching from a sum with the elegance of a monarch, you are sending a command of flow capacity. The supplicant does not give because he fears there won't be more. The dictator gives because he knows he is the source. This act of authoritative generosity is what keeps the channels clean of the fat of fear. By giving, you are demonstrating to your subconscious that money is a renewable resource subordinate to you. This demonstration of financial power immediately attracts a leveling response from the quantum field. Money that goes out in a state of peace returns in a state of multiplication. It is the law of sowing applied to the frequency of gold. You cannot harvest if you do not have the authority to empty your hand first. The consummation of financial autonomy. We reach the point where economy ceases to be a stress factor to become an atmospheric function. You do not worry about the air you breathe because you assume it is there. In the same way, the sovereign assumes liquidity. Inevitable abundance is the state where you stop making money to start permitting wealth. It is the end of the economic struggle. In this state, money pursues you. Opportunities seek you out. Resources manifest before you finish formulating the need, and the physical world surrenders before the evidence of your command. You have disintegrated scarcity. Not because the world has changed, but because you have erased the word lack from your vibratory dictionary. Money is now a docile reflection of your presence. You are free, not because of the number of zeros in your account, but because of the absolute certainty that you can summon any amount. The financial throne is yours, and abundance is your most loyal subject. Chapter 9, The Aura of Authority. The aura of authority is not a mystical concept or a poetic metaphor. It is a measurable biophysical reality. Every human being emits an electromagnetic field that extends several meters beyond their skin. However, in most people, this field is porous, erratic, and weak. It is a survival field that reacts to external stimuli, shrinking before a threat, or expanding desperately before the need for approval. The sovereign instead builds a pressurized field. Their aura does not react. It imposes. The impact of silence is the compressor of this energy. When you speak, you fragment your field. Every word that leaves your mouth is a pressure leak. If you speak to explain yourself, to convince, or to fill an uncomfortable void, you are admitting that your presence alone is not enough. The aura of authority is cultivated in retention. It is the ability to hold an intention in the space of your electromagnetic field without letting it escape through the channel of language. This silence pressurizes your aura, turning it into a frequency wall that others perceive as an irresistible gravity. It is not what you say that changes reality. It is the density of the space you occupy. In the engineering of consciousness, silence functions as an electrical capacitor. It accumulates charge until the discharge is inevitable. When you keep a purpose in absolute secret, you are creating a quantum tension. This tension seeks an exit, and finding none in the weak vibration of speech, it is forced to seek it in the crystallization of facts. Silence is not empty. It is contained potency. Most failures in command occur due to a premature mental ejaculation. By telling a plan, the brain receives a dose of dopamine that makes it believe the goal has already been fulfilled. The tension is released, the aura's pressure drops, and the motivation for matter to move vanishes. The Dictator uses silence to keep that thirst for manifestation alive. By not speaking, you force the universe to guess your next move, which keeps the matrix in a state of alert and readiness. Your silence is the order that reality must speak for you. If you remain silent, events must scream your success. Within the aura of authority, the most potent sense after silence is vision, but not as a reception of light, but as an emission of command. There is a phenomenon called visual purpose fixation. When a sovereign looks at a situation, they are not seeing what is happening, they are injecting their frequency into the atoms of that situation. The impact of silence is empowered when combined with a gaze that does not blink before the appearance of disorder. If someone tries to challenge your authority, or if a circumstance seems to spiral out of control, your response must not be verbal. Your response is sustained silence and the gaze of recognition. By not emitting sounds of complaint or defense, you communicate that the challenge has no substance. Your silence removes the oxygen from the opposition. In the void of your verbal response, the opponent, be it a person or a crisis, is forced to face their own inconsistency. Your aura, being pressurized by silence, acts as a mirror that returns any attack. The attack is transformed into fatigue for the emitter. You have noticed that in certain rooms, when a specific person enters, the conversation stops or the tone changes without that person having said a word. That is will displacement. The aura of that person is denser than the sum of the auras of those present. Their silence is so heavy that it pushes lesser frequencies toward the periphery. To cultivate this presence, you must practice isolation in the crowd. It means being physically present but keeping your frequency in a state of inaccessibility. Do not give yourself away. Do not offer your emotional energy to every comment or stimulus from the environment. Keep your center of gravity so low and firm that others feel the need to orbit. They orbit around your silence. The aura of authority feels like a cold majesty. It is not hatred, it is not shyness. It is the supreme economy of energy. He who remains most silent occupies the most territory. The greatest enemy of the aura of authority is the thirst to be understood. The slave needs others to understand their point of view, to validate their reasons, and to accept their excuses. The sovereign knows that understanding is irrelevant. What matters is the obedience of matter. The impact of silence is that it cuts off the need for validation at the root. By not explaining your motives, you become a mystery, and mystery is one of the highest forms of power. What is not understood cannot be manipulated. By keeping your why in the silence of your aura, you maintain total control of the quantum narrative. Others can speculate, but they cannot anchor your frequency. Your aura becomes slippery ground for the projections of others. This emotional independence further pressurizes your field, allowing you to move through the world without leaving traces of doubt. You are a solid block of certainty walking through a world of liquid shadows. The protocol of mental immobility, the aura of authority requires you to learn to be the hub of the hurricane. While the world around you is agitated with news, crises, opinions, and hurry, you remain in absolute mental immobility. This immobility is what gives silence its destructive impact on resistance. The Observation Center. Imagine your consciousness is situated at a point of infinite stillness in the center of your head. From there you observe the noise of the world as if they were waves breaking against a granite cliff. The retention of etheric breath. Learn to hold your intention in your chest, feeling how the heat of your purpose expands through your aura without a single word. The delay response. When the world demands an immediate reaction, give them silence. Wait 3 seconds longer than is comfortable. In those 3 seconds, your aura is absorbing the energy of the situation and reorganizing it according to your mandate. The impact of silence is that it grants you quantum time. While others react, you dictate. Your aura is not a shield. It is a filter that transmutes chaos into order by the simple fact of not participating in the frequency of noise. The sovereign does not shout to be heard. The sovereign silences himself so that the entire universe stops to listen to his pulse. The telepathic transmission of command. Subatomic language. The supplicant's error is believing that communication only occurs through the vocal cords. The Dictator understands that language is a three-dimensional limitation. The true transmission of orders occurs at the level of field resonance. When your aura of authority is correctly pressurized by silence, you begin to emit coherent information packets that others decode subconsciously. This is what we call telepathic command. It is not about sending complex phrases, but about projecting states of fact. If in your absolute silence you know that a negotiation is closed in your favor, that certainty hits the electromagnetic field of the other person. They will begin to feel an inexplicable inclination toward your stance. They will feel that opposing you is natural. The impact of silence is that it removes the static of verbal doubt, allowing your intention to travel clean and without resistance toward the other's processing center. You are hacking the reality of others without pronouncing a single syllable. Silent omnipresence, the heavy shadow effect. A sovereign whose aura of authority is vast and dense develops what we call the heavy shadow effect. This means that your influence does not stop when you leave a room. Your silence leaves a frequency footprint in the space and in the people. When you stop speaking and withdraw, your absence is felt more strongly than the presence of any chatterbox. This omnipresence is achieved through identity retention. By not giving details about your life, your fears, or your processes, you do not allow others to pigeonhole you. By being a silent mystery, the subconscious of others tends to fill that void with respect and reverential fear. Your aura expands in their psyche. Events are ordered in your absence because the footprint of your command is so deep that matter continues to obey. Silence grants you the gift of being present in the minds of your allies and enemies as an immovable constant. The shield against psychic infection. The outside world is a storm of chaotic frequencies: fear, indignation, urgency, and triviality. Most people absorb these frequencies like sponges, allowing external noise to dictate their internal state. The aura of authority, hardened by the impact of silence, acts as a selective frequency filter. When someone tries to pour their drama or doubt upon you, your silence acts as a diamond surface where that energy simply slides away. You do not defend yourself, because defense is a form of contact that allows infection. You simply remain in your silence. By not reacting, you do not give them an anchoring point. That person will find themselves shouting into an abyss of calm, which quickly drains their energy and forces them to withdraw or submit to your frequency of peace. Silence is your quantum bunker. It is the space where noise dies and only your will survives. In metaphysical combat, stillness defeats movement. The resistance of matter feeds on your own agitation. If you move too fast, if you speak too much, if you try to force things physically, you are creating friction. The aura of authority uses strategic stillness. When you face an obstacle, instead of lunging at it, stop. Stay in absolute silence. Observe the obstacle from the coldness of your aura. In that state of non-action, you are withdrawing the energetic substrate that supports the obstacle. Matter, not receiving the impact of your struggle, loses its cohesion and begins to dissolve. It is the vacuum strike technique. You let the problem fall into the black hole of your silence. The impact of silence is that it makes struggle obsolete. There is nothing more terrifying for entropy than a consciousness that is unmoved. The consummation of the aura, the state of absolute gravity. At the end of this training, the sovereign inhabits a state of absolute gravity. You are not the one moving toward the world is the one falling toward you. Your aura of authority has become so massive that time and space curve around you. Events, people, and resources simply happen in your proximity. This is the climax of the impact of silence. You have stopped being a radio signal seeking to be tuned to become the central station on which everyone depends. Your silence is the seal of your operational divinity. You have understood that word is silver. Silence is the alchemical gold where consciousness merges with omnipotence. The universe does not just listen to you. The universe silences itself so that your mere presence is the one that dictates the law of today. Chapter 10. The Consummation. We reach the point of no return in the architecture of command. The consummation is not an act of conquest over an external world. It is the definitive collapse of the illusion that something exists outside of your field of consciousness. Throughout 9 chapters, we have treated matter, money, and the body as elements. We treated them as elements that must be tamed or influenced. In this 10th step, the technique dissolves to give way to unified identity. The universe stops being a stage where you act to become the outer skin of your own mind. The docility of the universe is born from a radical understanding. There is no one to convince, there are no physical laws to defy, and there is no divine or cosmic will that must give you permission. The universe is a docile reflection because it is, in essence, your own shadow projected on the screen of space-time. If you try to move the reflection in a mirror with your hands, you find resistance. You find friction and frustration. But if you move your face, the reflection moves instantaneously, without effort, without delay, and without a will of its own to oppose you. The consummation is the art of moving the face of consciousness so that the world has no other physical choice but to imitate the gesture. The neutrality of the quantum mirror. The universe is ontologically neutral. It has no preferences, no morals, and no plan for you. This is the most liberating news for the sovereign and the most terrifying for the slave. The docility of the universe is absolute because it lacks judgment. If you project an image of lack, the mirror returns scarcity with mathematical fidelity. If you project an image of indisputable command, the mirror returns obedience with the same frigid precision. The problem for most human beings is that they are afraid of their own reflection. They see a crisis and react to it, without realizing that their reaction is what keeps the image frozen in the mirror. Consummating command means reaching the neutrality of the observer. You must be able to look at the world and see not problems or successes, but simply temporary configurations of your own energy. When you stop granting a life of its own to what you see, you take away its ability to resist. A reflection cannot attack the one who projects it, unless the one who projects it believes the reflection has a life of its own. Docility is the natural state of matter when faced with a consciousness that recognizes itself as the only source. The collapse of quantum distance. In the preparation phase for final consummation, we must eliminate the concept of distance. In the world of supplication, the desire is over there and you are here. There is a space to traverse, a time to wait, and an effort to make. In the world of the docile reflection, the distance is zero. The object of your desire is not something that must come toward you. It is a part of you that you are simply choosing to illuminate at this moment. Imagine that your consciousness is a massive spotlight in a dark room full of treasures and debris. What you call manifestation is simply the act of turning the spotlight. You turn the spotlight toward the treasure. The treasure did not arrive at the light. The treasure was already there, waiting for your will to make it visible. The consummation is the state of selective illumination. You do not seek results. You decide which part of your vast internal inventory you will project today. By eliminating mental distance, you eliminate physical delay. The universe becomes docile because you are no longer trying to attract anything, but are simply being what you previously desired. For the universe to act as a docile reflection, your identity signal must be pure. Most people soil their I am with limiting attributes. I am poor, I am old, I am someone trying to improve. These attributes are like spots on the mirror that distort the image. The Dictator operates from the primary I am. It is a pure presence without labels that precedes any creation. From this state of identity void, any decree you launch is engraved into the substance of the universe with atomic force. By not being defined by your past or your circumstances, you have the total freedom to define the present. The docility of matter is the response to the clarity of your identity. If you are ambiguous about who you are, the universe will be ambiguous about what to deliver to you. If your identity is an immovable rock of authority, the universe becomes the softest clay under your hands. You are preparing the ground for the final act, where the observer and the observed merge into a single stream of will. Despite the intrinsic docility of the universe, a phenomenon exists that the sovereign must handle at this stage: the inertia of form. Matter is dense, and sometimes it seems to take a moment to reflect the change in consciousness. This is the critical moment where most aspirants to the throne fail. They see that the mirror has not changed instantly and assume their command has failed. By doubting, they project the old image again, and the universe, docile as always, obeys the doubt and maintains the old form. Consummating command means ignoring inertia. It is maintaining the new internal posture with such fixedness. You maintain it until the universe has no choice but to update the physical image. It is a duel of persistence between your will and the slowness of atoms. The dictator knows that matter has already surrendered at the quantum level. It is only waiting for linear time to catch up. This preparation for the end requires an aristocratic patience. You do not press the mirror to change. You simply remain in the new identity, knowing the reflection has no physical choice but to follow you. The delay is the ultimate test of your sovereignty. The transfiguration of the environment. The world is body extension. At this level of consummation, you begin to feel that the external world is not something that surrounds you, but something that belongs to you in the same way as your hands. The air you breathe, the people you speak with, and the money you handle are extensions of your own nervous system. This expanded sensitivity is what grants absolute command. You do not command a stranger, you command a part of yourself. When you treat the universe as your own body, resistance disappears. You do not fight against your own arm to move it. You simply move it. In the same way, you do not fight against circumstances. You do not fight to change them. You simply reimagine them. This is the preparation for the definitive conclusion of this book, the recognition that you are the architect, the construction material, and the building itself. The universe is your docile reflection because there were never two things. It was always you, operating behind the veil of multiplicity, learning to recognize your own voice in the echo of events. The mechanics of the instant decree, the collapse of delay. In the advanced phase of consummation, time stops being a variable of resistance to become a tool of precision. The instant decree is not a petition to the future. It is the injection of a fact into the fabric of the present. Most human beings operate under the illusion of linear causality. They believe that for A to happen, B, C, and D must first occur. This belief is what creates physical delay. The dictator, recognizing the universe as his docile reflection, understands he can skip the intermediate steps and collapse the timeline directly into the result. The mechanics of the instant decree require a silent violence of the will. It is not a soft thought. It is an order engraved in the void. When you dictate that a situation be resolved, you are not waiting for the pieces to move. You are declaring that the pieces are already in place. Matter, finding no will that contradicts it in your field of consciousness, undergoes a structural transmutation. Atoms do not have permission to take time when the observer is absolute. Delay is the symptom of a fissure in your certainty. By sealing that fissure, the reflection in the mirror must update at light speed. You are eliminating the friction of "not yet" and replacing it with the authority of "it already is." Consummation reaches its peak when the observer and the observed merge into a single stream of existence. As long as you believe you are the subject trying to influence an object, there will be separation. Where there is separation, there is the possibility of failure. The universe is your docile reflection precisely because you are the universe. This is not a metaphorical statement. It is a description of quantum reality. There is no real border where your consciousness ends and physical matter begins. By merging with your goal, you stop attracting it. You cannot attract what you already are. The dictator does not attract wealth. He is the frequency of wealth expressing itself as matter. When you achieve this fusion, command becomes automatic. You no longer need to do manifestation exercises. Your mere presence is the exercise. Your breath is the decree. Your gaze is the law. In this state, the universe stops being a servant to be ordered and becomes an organic extension of your own will. Docility is total because there is no other that can resist. It is you, speaking to yourself through form. The seal of the sovereign, the immutability of command. Once the decree has been launched and the fusion completed, the sovereign applies the seal of immutability. This is the act of closing the case mentally. The greatest error initiates make is checking if the universe is obeying. They look at the mirror to see if the image has already changed. That look of review is a confession of doubt. It is a reopening of the case that allows resistance to return. The seal of the sovereign consists of giving the order and refusing to look at contrary evidence. If the physical world still shows the old image, the dictator treats it as a hallucination or data trash. His attention remains anchored in the new reality with such ferocity that the universe is forced to capitulate. The seal is the final period of the command sentence. It is the metaphysical Amen, which means, so it is, and it cannot be otherwise. By sealing your command, you withdraw your energy from other possibilities. You have burned the ships. There is no turning back to scarcity or disease. The universe, seeing there is no other option in your mind, precipitates the physical form with absolute obedience. Although the dictator operates from the coldness of command, a type of joy exists. It is a joy born not from surprise, but from the recognition of one's own omnipotence. This joy is the fuel that densifies the idea into physical mass. By feeling the relief and satisfaction that the universe is already your docile reflection, you are sending a signal of low resistance to the quantum field. Sovereign gratitude is not a thank you to an external God. It is the celebration of your own success already consummated. This feeling of possession acts as a high-power magnet. By inhabiting the emotional state of the fulfilled desire, you are eliminating any trace of need. Need repels, possession attracts. The universe is attracted to fullness. When you are full of the certainty of your command, matter rushes toward you to match your internal state. You are preparing the atmosphere for the final conclusion, where the cycle of creation closes. You emerge as the sole person responsible for the glory or chaos in your kingdom. The docility of the universe is your birthright, and in this chapter you have finally learned to open it. To consummate the reflection, you must destroy the notion that the future is the place where good things happen. The future is the dumping ground of unfulfilled desires. The dictator only knows the now of command. Any order you project toward the future, tomorrow I will have, next month I will heal, is an order of perpetual delay. The universe, docile as it is, will keep you in the state of tomorrow I will have forever. Consummation demands that you bring all power to the present. The reflection must change now in your consciousness, so it can change now in the matrix. This transfiguration of time grants you an operational speed the common man cannot understand. While others plan and wait, you dictate and receive. The universe is docile before the present because the present is the only point where consciousness and matter truly touch. By anchoring your command in the now, you are eliminating the gap where doubt usually hides. The mirror has no time. It reflects what is in front of it right now. Be the owner now, and the universe will have no choice but to show you your crown. The return to the throne of consciousness. You have traveled a path that most human beings avoid out of pure terror of their own magnitude. You have dismantled the illusion of resistance, hacked your own biology, forced synchronicity, and understood that the void is your most potent capture tool. Now, arriving at the close of this power structure, you must integrate the final truth. The universe has no choice but to obey you because the universe is not something distinct from you. Obedience is not an act of submission of matter toward a stranger, but the natural response of a reflection toward its origin. The conclusion of this audiobook is not a final point, but the beginning of your state of permanent command. From this moment on, you are no longer a student of metaphysics. You are the operator of reality. The difference is subtle but devastating for the ego. The student seeks techniques. The operator dictates laws. The student expects results. The operator observes manifestations. You have ceased to be a castaway in the sea of circumstances. You have become the moon that dictates the movement of the tides. The responsibility of omnipotence. Assuming that the universe is your docile reflection, carries a burden that few are willing to sustain. Absolute responsibility. If the world is your mirror, you can no longer blame luck, the government, your past, or the betrayal of others. Every shadow in your life is a corner of your own consciousness. It is a corner you have not yet reclaimed. Every economic or physical limitation is a command of scarcity that you continue to emit without realizing it. The sovereign does not complain about the reflection, he changes the posture. The conclusion of this work demands that you forever abandon the role of the victim. There are no longer bad news, only feedback from your own frequency. If the mirror shows you something you do not like, do not try to break the glass. Enter the silence of your aura, pressurize your intention, and dictate a new configuration. The universe, in its infinite and frigid docility, will erase the old image. It will project the new one with the same indifference with which a cinema projector changes scenes. You are the screenwriter, the actor, and the projectionist. Do not seek justice in the world, dictate your own law. 2. Maintaining the throne state. The danger after closing this book is allowing the inertia of the normal world to suck you back into the frequency of supplication. The human mass lives in a state of collective hypnosis, convinced of its own weakness. They will try to convince you that what you have learned is fantasy. They will say, matter is solid, and effort is the only way. Your job is to maintain the shielding of sovereignty. Maintaining the throne requires you to continue practicing the impact of silence. Do not waste your power trying to convince skeptics. Let your life be the irrefutable argument. When others see how money pursues you, how your health regenerates, and how events seem to conspire in your favor, they themselves will seek your secret. But you, stay in your aura of authority. Do not give explanations that dilute your quantum pressure. The sovereign reigns from silence. He allows his results to speak for him. 3. The dissolution of desire into possession. The definitive conclusion is the transformation of desire into fact. Desire is a frequency of separation. Possession is a frequency of unity. Throughout these chapters, we have moved your consciousness from I want toward I am. This is the key to total mastery. A God does not desire the universe. The God holds the universe in his perception. Walk from today with the physical sensation that everything you ever dreamed of is already in your inventory. Do not look for it in the future. Look for it in your present certainty. If you need something, do not pray for it. Recognize it as a property of yours that has simply been out of your visual field for a moment. Call things that are not as though they were, and the universe, which abhors contradiction between consciousness and form, will be forced to precipitate matter to save the system's coherence. You are the point of origin. Everything emanates from you. IV. The final seal, you are destiny. The universe will have no choice but to obey you is not a promise. It is a description of your essential nature. You have remembered that matter is only slowed down light and that your will is the prism that gives it shape. The veil of doubt has been torn, the void has been reclaimed, and abundance has been decreed. Abundance has been decreed as inevitable. There is no more to say. Words have fulfilled their function of transporting you to the threshold of command. Now, the rest of the audiobook must be written by your actions and your manifestations. The consummation is yours. Look at the world not as a challenge, but as soft clay waiting for the print of your shoe. You are the architect of consciousness, the dictator of frequency, and the owner of the reflection. The universe is in silence, waiting for your next order. Sit on your throne. Close your eyes. Feel the pressure of your own omnipotence running through your DNA. And when you are ready, open your eyes and observe how the world, docile and perfect, begins to bow before your mere presence. It is done.